"Mommy Naomi." The cry rang out like a thunderclap across the high society garden party, freezing the entire gathering in place. A champagne flute halted mid-air in a lady's hand. The jazz band missed a beat. Every eye turned toward the source of the voice, 4-year-old Lucas Belmont, darting through the crowd, running straight toward the black nanny holding a silver tray. Naomi Carter, the woman, stopped cold, as if struck still. Guests began whispering. Some snickered with cruel amusement. Celeste Belmont, the hostess, stood frozen, her smile stiffening into something gelatinous. "She is not your mother," Celeste snapped through clenched teeth. But Lucas wouldn't let go. He wrapped his tiny arms tightly around Naomi. Naomi clutched the tray in her hands, her eyes drifting into the void between all the scornful stares. Yet there was something no one in that mansion knew. Not about the boy, but about the woman standing there in silence. If you want to know who Naomi really is and why a child would call her mommy in front of hundreds of the most powerful people in town, hit subscribe. Because this story is just beginning. Belmont Estate, a house where everything gleamed but nothing felt warm. From the winding staircase to the polished corridors, from the Italian crystal chandeliers to the Carrara marble floors, this place lacked nothing, except genuine laughter. A family portrait hung in the center of the grand foyer, Lucas seated between his parents, forcing a smile. But anyone who'd stayed long enough knew. That photo was taken right after the boy had cried his heart out for not being able to find Mommy Naomi. Naomi Carter lived in the basement, in a small room beside the laundry. She woke before dawn's first light, made breakfast, brushed the boy's hair, rubbed oils on his chest when he had a fever. Yet every time she passed Celeste in the hallway, she lowered her head in greeting, and received only a cold, dismissive nod in return, as if she were a piece of movable furniture. But Lucas was different. Every time he scraped his knee, he didn't cry for Mom. He slipped into the kitchen, ran to Naomi, pressed his face against her leg, silent. He didn't need to ask if she was there, because Naomi was always there. She remembered how Lucas used to fear thunder, how he refused to eat carrots, how he mispronounced pajamas as panana. She knew exactly how long his naps would last before the nightmares began. Celeste Belmont didn't need to remember those things. She could ring a bell. She could have Naomi change his clothes, apply lotion, teach him how to behave in public. She didn't need to know which bedtime stories Lucas loved. As long as the boy knew how to sit up straight and stay quiet around the elite, that was enough. To the Belmonts, Naomi was good. She was convenient. She was reliable. But no one ever asked, who was Naomi beyond the role she served? Inside that mansion, there were hundreds of photographs, and not a single one included Naomi. Naomi Carter's tiny room beside the laundry held only a single bed, an old wooden drawer, and one photograph, laminated, tucked carefully beneath a folded cloth. Each night after Lucas had fallen asleep, Naomi sat before that drawer. She opened it like a sacred ritual, gently took out the photo and wiped it with the hem of her shirt. In the picture, a brown-skinned boy, Jaden Carter, hands raised to the sky, laughing as he held up a red plastic truck. "But you liked the ambulance one," Naomi whispered, her voice barely more than breath. Jaden was her son. He had been the reason she lived, and the reason she left medicine forever. 12 years ago, Naomi had been an emergency room nurse at Westlake General. Skilled, compassionate, the one who always took the hardest night shifts. One day, Jaden developed a high fever and rash. Naomi rushed him to the hospital, the very hospital where she worked. But they made her wait in line. Another patient was prioritized, a private insurance holder with connections inside the hospital. By the time Naomi was called into the exam room, Jaden had begun seizing. 14 minutes later, his heart stopped from septic shock. From that day on, Naomi hung up her white coat. She swore she'd never walk into an ER again. She couldn't bear to touch life anymore, because she was terrified of losing it again. And then, one day, a mother needed a part-time nanny. Naomi said yes, not for the money, but for Lucas, the little boy whose round eyes looked just like Jaden's. The boy who, in his first dream sleeping beside her, called her Mommy. She placed the photo back into the drawer, locked it, lifted her head, wiped her face, and stepped out, as if pain had never lived there. But the photograph remained, and one day it will resurface before the world. Not to tell a story of grief, but to remind us that a mother needs no title to be called one. Naomi, were you ever a nurse? Mila Tran asked softly as the two of them folded tablecloths side by side. Naomi offered a faint smile but gave no reply. Mila, still curious, pressed gently. Then why are you doing this now? Naomi fell silent, then slowly placed a hand over her chest. A small gesture, as if holding her heart together so it wouldn't shatter. Because I don't dare to touch life anymore. Back when she was still a nurse, Naomi had once confidently handled the most critical emergencies. She had saved a boy who'd fallen from scaffolding. She had revived a mother whose heart had stopped on the operating table. But when it came to her own son, she couldn't do a thing. Not because she lacked skill, but because the system had chosen someone else, and she had been helpless, like a shadow, in the very place where she used to shine. Since Jaden's death, Naomi couldn't bear the sound of a heart monitor. She couldn't stand the smell of antiseptic. She couldn't even walk past a hospital without her hands trembling. She took on many jobs afterward, waitressing in diners, cleaning schools, until Lucas came along. That little boy, with his wide, anxious eyes and restless sleep. He didn't get along with expensive nannies and cried every time his mother left. But with Naomi, all it took was a hug, a lullaby from long ago. And Lucas slept peacefully, nightmares gone. Naomi didn't heal people anymore, but she healed through presence. No stethoscopes, no needles. Just two gentle hands, and a heart brave enough to love again, even after it had been broken. What Naomi didn't know was that these very hands, the hands that once refused to touch life, would one day save an entire generation. But this time, not in an emergency room, this time in cold, opulent rooms, where people had forgotten that love, too, is a form of expertise. Lucas had a mild fever. He lay in his room, cheeks flushed, lips dry. Naomi sat beside him, holding a warm cloth, whispering gently, "Just rest a little. Mommy's right here." Lucas held her hand, murmured weakly, "Mommy, don't go anywhere." Celeste entered. She froze for a moment at the sight. Her son. Not reaching for his biological mother, but calling the maid Mommy. Celeste's lips tightened. She quickly walked over, pulled the blanket up around Lucas, then turned to Naomi. "Thank you, I can take care of him now." Naomi nodded, preparing to leave, but Lucas tugged on her hand. "I want Mommy Naomi to stay." The air thickened. Celeste gave a soft laugh, void of warmth. She sat down, stroking Lucas's hair. "Lucas, she's not your mother. She's just the maid. Your mommy is me." Lucas turned to Naomi, his face scrunching up. "But Mommy doesn't sing to me. Mommy Naomi sings." Celeste stood up. Her voice was cold. "She is not your mother, Lucas, and I don't want to hear that again." Naomi lowered her head, said nothing. Her hand remained where it was, resting on that tiny hand gripping hers, as if the child's touch was the only thing anchoring them both. That night, Naomi sat alone in the back kitchen. Lucas had fallen asleep, but echoing inside her was the same sentence, over and over. "She's not your mother." She whispered into the darkness, "Yes, I'm not. But if you need me, I'll still be." Belmont Estate gleamed like a castle. The annual winter charity gala, Celeste's grand gathering of hundreds of business magnates, politicians, and social elites. Theme of the night, compassion is the ultimate luxury. Naomi looked at the floral arrangements, the gold-foiled invitations, the silk-covered banquet tables, then quietly buttoned up her grey uniform. In the staff dressing room, Mila Tran whispered, "You probably shouldn't be stationed at the bar tonight. I heard the missus doesn't want anyone too noticeable." Naomi nodded. Too noticeable meant, don't let anyone see a child run into her arms in the middle of the crowd. Don't let anyone call her mommy. As the guests arrived one by one, Celeste stood in the grand hall, like a queen greeting her court. Lucas, dressed in a tiny tuxedo, held her hand as they walked, but he kept glancing back, searching for someone. "Where's Mommy Naomi?" Celeste forced a smile toward the senator beside her. He's just used to saying that. Kids, you know. In the back hall, Naomi stood behind the bar, pouring wine, arranging pastries. No one greeted her. No one remembered her name. Everyone was too busy, shining in the name of compassion, to notice the quiet woman who actually lived for others. When a guest turned and asked Naomi, "Who are you? New server?" she simply replied, "I'm just here to help." From across the room, Lucas broke away from the adults and ran toward her. Celeste rushed to grab his hand. "Number today is important. You need to stay by Mommy's side." Lucas pulled his hand away, eyes welling with tears. "But I just want to give this cookie to Mommy Naomi." Celeste clenched her jaw, looked around. All eyes were on them. Lucas slipped away from Celeste's grasp. In his little hand was a chocolate-covered cookie, freshly taken from the children's dessert tray. "Mommy Naomi, I saved a cookie for you." The boy darted down the aisle between the seats, past the sound of violins, and toward the back serving area, where Naomi was stacking glasses behind the bar. Naomi turned, but before she could react, Lucas had already thrown his arms around her. The cookie squished. A thick chocolate stain pressed right into the front of Naomi's dress, squarely on her abdomen. Time seemed to slow. Celeste spun around, her high heels clacking sharply against the marble floor. Her eyes locked on Naomi, then dropped to the stain, then to the guests who had begun turning their heads. "Lucas," Celeste's voice was sharp, rigid. "What are you doing?" "I gave Mommy a cookie," Lucas replied, cheerful and unbothered. Celeste's gaze bore into Naomi, her lips tightening into a strained smile. "She's not your mother, Lucas." "But you don't like hugging me." "Mommy Naomi hugs me when I have a fever." All eyes turned to Naomi. She stood tall, still holding the child in her arms. No explanations, no apologies, no bowed head. "I just wanted to eat the cookie with her," Lucas mumbled, his voice fading in the heavy silence. Celeste gave a cold smile. Her hand rested on her son's shoulder as she pulled him gently toward her. "Come, Lucas. She's staff. She's not family." The chocolate stain slowly spread across Naomi's dress, like a mark of disgrace in the middle of a glittering celebration. But in Lucas's eyes, she was still the only one he ever called Mommy. The evening gala at Belmont Estate had reached its peak. A string quartet played Canon in D. Soft lighting glowed on the crystal podium at the front. Celeste Belmont stepped up, dressed in a shimmering evening gown. She smiled, her voice sweet as champagne. "We've gathered tonight to raise funds for the education of children in underserved communities." Polite applause filled the room. Cameras flashed. At the back of the hall, Naomi stood among the catering staff, her silver-grey uniform reflecting the soft glow of the chandeliers. She held a tray of wine glasses, eyes fixed quietly on Lucas. Lucas, seated between his parents, squirmed in his chair. He looked around, scanning the room. He couldn't see Naomi. Then he lifted his head. This time his eyes locked on the service crew at the back. He found Naomi's gaze. She gave him a gentle smile, hand resting over her heart. Suddenly, Lucas jumped to his feet. "I want to sit with Mommy Naomi." His voice tore through the elegant air like a crack of lightning. The music stopped. All heads turned. Celeste froze mid-speech. "Lucas, sit down," Douglas hissed through clenched teeth. "No, I want to sit with Mommy Naomi. I don't like this table. Mommy Naomi always listens to me." Lucas bolted from the table, racing across the red carpet like a tiny arrow. Straight toward Naomi. She froze, tray still in hand, eyes wide. "Lucas, careful, baby." He wrapped his arms around her waist, face pressed against the grey dress, still stained with chocolate. "Mommy Naomi, can I sit next to you?" Silence. A few guests chuckled nervously. Others exchanged whispers. The event camera pivoted to capture the scene. Celeste, still on stage, lips pressed into a hard line, her gaze like ice. Naomi knelt, set the tray aside, and gently embraced Lucas. All right, sweetheart. Mommy's here. She didn't explain. She didn't fight for a title. She simply held a child, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, something no one else in that powerful room had dared to do. Lucas remained curled in Naomi's arms, sitting on the floor, indifferent to the hundreds of eyes watching him. Celeste Belmont tried to regain her composure on stage. Lucas, you're disrupting the event. Come back to your seat, please. No response. Lucas simply looked up at Naomi, his eyes red but his voice steady. Mommy Naomi, do you love me? That question shattered every wall of decorum in the ballroom. Naomi froze, 1 second, two, then gave a gentle nod. I love you. I love you more than anything. A single breath, light as wind, yet heavy as unshed tears. The guests began murmuring. He called the nanny his mom. Why isn't the hostess saying anything definitive? With love like that, how do you separate them? Celeste stepped forcefully down from the stage, her heels striking sharply against the marble. She walked straight to Lucas, her tone ice-cold as she bent down. Lucas, stand up and move away from that woman. Naomi instinctively held the boy closer. Celeste wouldn't tolerate defiance. Naomi, return to the kitchen, now. She didn't yell, but every word landed like a blade. Naomi rose slowly. Lucas still clung tightly to her hand. She bent down, whispering softly in his ear. You need to go back to your table, sweetheart. Mommy isn't allowed to sit there. Lucas burst into tears, wiping his face against the chocolate-stained fabric of her dress. Naomi turned away. No argument, no apology, no explanation, just a quiet retreat. A gloomy morning at Belmont Estate, with mist still clinging to the window panes. Naomi was summoned to the study. Douglas Belmont sat waiting, flipping through a newspaper without really looking at it. Beside him stood Celeste, arms crossed, her face cold as frost. We think it's time for you to leave. Naomi stood still, not shocked. She didn't ask why. She simply nodded. I understand. Outside the door, a faint sound. Like a toy car dropped to the floor, then a piercing scream. No! I don't want Mommy Naomi to go. Lucas burst into the room, tears streaming down his face, throwing his arms around Naomi's legs. I need Mommy Naomi. I don't care about the party or the new clothes. I just want my mommy. Douglas glanced awkwardly at his wife. Celeste's jaw clenched. Lucas, you're throwing a tantrum. Go to your room, now. But Lucas only screamed louder, sobbing uncontrollably. I hate you. I hate everyone here. Why are you sending Mommy Naomi away? Naomi knelt down, holding the boy in her arms one last time. I have to go, sweetheart, but the love I have for you, that's not going anywhere. Lucas trembled, fists clutching her dress. Naomi gently peeled his fingers away, one by one. The study door closed softly behind her. Lucas was carried off by a housemaid, still trying to twist around for one last look. His voice echoed down the corridor. Mommy Naomi, don't go. Don't go. That morning at dawn, not a single soul came to see Naomi off. She packed her belongings from the tiny room behind the kitchen. Just one old suitcase, a faded photo frame with a picture of Jaden, and a small crumpled piece of paper scribbled in crayon. Mommy Naomi, I love you. Lucas. Myla Tran, the only housemaid who paused her work, whispered, Naomi, I know you were never just a nanny. You're the kindest soul this place has ever known. She broke down in tears as Naomi gave her a gentle hug, then turned to go. From the second-floor window, Lucas pressed his face to the glass, his eyes red and swollen from crying all night. No farewell words, just the drawing taped above his bed. A sketch of Naomi holding him close, with the shaky, handwritten words, Mommy Naomi. Naomi wheeled her suitcase through the grand iron gate. She didn't look back. She didn't need to, because a true mother doesn't need to remain in a place void of love. She only needs to carry that love someplace it's truly deserved. A week after leaving Belmont Estate, Naomi never imagined she'd return to that place. But then came a call from Ms. Clara, her former supervisor at St. Teresa's orphanage, where Naomi used to volunteer before becoming a nanny. Naomi, there's a doctor who wants to make a large donation to the center, but she requested to meet the woman who used to care for her as a child, and she says that woman is you. The name on the request, Dr. Alana Brooks, and the meeting had been arranged at none other than the Belmont's charity gala. Naomi hesitated. She knew she wasn't welcome there, but thinking of the children at the center, she said yes. That night, Belmont Estate blazed with lights. Camera flashes lit up the entrance like lightning. Naomi arrived right on time, alone. No luxury car, no invitation, just a handwritten letter from Clara verifying her role, and a simple folder holding the draft of her dream project, Jaden's Place. She slipped into the side hall, planning to wait quietly in the service area, but before she could catch her breath, a woman recognized her, Dr. Alana Brooks. Right in front of the media and hundreds of guests, the doctor stepped forward, eyes filled with tears. "Oh my God, it's really you. You held me through nights of fever and fear. You were the only one who read me bedtime stories, even when no one asked you to. You're the reason I became a doctor." She embraced Naomi, not like a former patient, but like a daughter who had just found her mother again. The entire gala fell silent. Naomi, the woman who had once been cast out of this place, now stood embraced and honored by one of the most influential figures in modern medicine. Celeste stood frozen, her face pale as ash. Dr. Alana Brooks still held tightly to Naomi's hand as they stepped into the center of the grand hall, where every pair of eyes was now fixed on them. She raised the microphone. Her voice did not tremble. It rang out clearly, reaching even the far corners where million-dollar paintings hung in hushed silence. "I was once a child no one wanted. The only person who ever called me sweetheart was her. The first person who believed I could grow up and be something was her. I didn't come here tonight to donate my reputation. I came to tell you all, that woman is not a nanny. She is a mother to a generation of children who were once unloved." Applause erupted from one corner of the room. Then it spread, like fire catching wind. Some guests wiped tears from their eyes, others lowered their heads in quiet shame. Celeste Belmont, the woman who once cast Naomi out for fear of embarrassment, now stood unsteady, her face ghost white, exposed under the very spotlight she once believed belonged only to her. Lucas tugged at her dress, pointing, "Did you hear that, Mommy? Mommy Naomi is a good person. I told you, you didn't listen." Celeste's cheek twitched, but for the first time, she had no reply for her son. Outside, the internet exploded. A clip of Alana embracing Naomi and delivering her speech was uploaded to TikTok, then Twitter. In just 4 hours, the hashtag number She Raised Me reached over 1 million shares. One account wrote, "I don't know who Naomi is, but if she made a doctor who saved thousands cry like that, then I'll call her mom without a second thought." Another comment summed it up perfectly. "They called her a nanny, but we call her a legend." 2 hours after the viral speech, a photo spread across social media. Naomi, standing among hundreds of elite guests, her eyes still red, her hand stained with lemon juice from a spilled serving tray. And all around her, people were applauding. And Celeste Belmont, she was scrambling to organize an emergency internal meeting, not to apologize, but to find a way to keep Naomi, not with sincerity, but with fear. Fear of personal brand collapse and public backlash. The next day, Naomi was summoned to the study once again. Celeste sat there, her expression stripped of its usual arrogance. "Naomi, I believe we can negotiate. I'm willing to increase your salary, offer you a long-term contract. We need you." Naomi smiled, not the grateful, deferential smile of before, but the quiet smile of someone who had risen from the shadows. She spoke slowly, "Thank you, Celeste, but I don't stay in places where love has to whisper like it's guilty." Celeste was stunned. No one had ever spoken to her that way. No one had ever dared walk away. When she was offering a command to stay, Naomi stood. Lucas burst into the room, throwing his arms around her one last time. "Mommy Naomi, don't go. I'll be good, I promise." Naomi knelt, hugging him close. Her voice was a whisper, soft and eternal. I'll always be in your heart, and whenever you need me, just say my name. Even when you're old, I'll still hear it. Lucas broke into sobs. Celeste turned away, because for the first time in her life, she had lost to someone who had nothing but love that was real. Naomi walked out the gates of Belmont Estate. No luggage, no papers, only one thing in her arms. A name that had brought her back to life. Mommy Naomi. 3 months later, on a quiet street in the southern part of the city, a small yellow-painted house stood open to the morning sun. A hand-painted sign, written in a child's handwriting, hung above the gate. Jaden's place, Mommy Naomi will always hear you. It wasn't a big center. There were no glittering nameplates, no top-of-the-line air conditioning. Just the scent of fresh-baked cookies, the laughter of children, and a woman always ready to listen. Not needing to be called Ma'am or Miss. Only 2 words. Mommy. Naomi sat in the yard, wearing a faded floral dress, clipping the nails of a little girl who had been abandoned by her adoptive family. The girl looked up quietly and asked, "Are you my mommy?" Naomi paused. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out an old knitted bracelet. Jaden's bracelet. She gently slipped it onto the girl's wrist and smiled. "If you need a mommy, then I'm here." Behind her, Lucas Belmont ran through the gate, holding up a freshly drawn picture. Celeste followed. For the first time, without designer clothes, and without perfectly painted makeup. She looked at Naomi, and this time her gaze wasn't cold, but the quiet recognition of a woman who had walked beyond her own pride and learned how to apologize with action. Inside the little home, the largest picture on the wall was an old photograph, Naomi holding a young Jaden in her arms. And just beneath it, a handwritten caption by Lucas, "This is the woman who raised the world I want to live in." No more uniforms, no name tags, no orders from any master, only Naomi. A mother who never had to give birth to anyone, but still managed to heal an entire generation with unconditional love. If this story warmed your heart, please subscribe and share the video to spread the love. Because some mothers don't need a title, they leave their mark on every small heart they touch.